I'm Bill DeFoi, and welcome to It's Just That Simple with my co-host, Michele Wilson. Michele, good to have you back with us.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, wonderful. Now, first of all, I want to tell you happy Valentine's Day. We're just ahead of Valentine's Day before we do this, and so happy Valentine's Day to you.
Thank you, and happy Valentine's Day to you, too.
All right. So, today's topic du jour, the 3 internet scams at the IRS. Not that they're putting out the scams, but people are using them as, I guess, would be a platform to base their scams upon.
You know, it's that time of year, and of course, there's the identity theft thieves are out there because they know that they can't, people are going to be millions and millions or billions of people are going to be filing their income tax. And that's why, the IRS is a target because people their information through the IRS. They do those electronic forms and so forth like that. So they can prey victims. So yes.
All right. So you have indicated, 3 top scams. So let's go with number 1.
Well, really, the number 1 scam is basically people will file their income taxes before you do. Last year, or actually I think it was 2013, it said there was like $27 billion in bogus tax returns. So basically how that happens, and it actually happened to me, I filed my income taxes and my own income taxes were rejected. I couldn't get my own refund. And then when I contacted IRS, it says, oh, sorry, someone else has already gotten the return fund. So it took me like 9 months to get that straightened out. And it says it takes about an average of 278 days to overcome that type of bogus claim.
So what kind of hoops and things did you have to go through to get that resolved over that 9-month span?
Well, actually, I had to fill out one form from the IRS, but it just took them that long to investigate it because there was so many people had the same issue, and it just takes a long time for our government to respond to those type of things. So I think it was just a matter of just getting to my form. So I just actually had to fill out a form.
So a very basic form, but it does take the time for the investigation to ensue.
Right. And so if you're expecting that you're going to get a return, you may want to, that would be my simple step, is you want to be file early, because the longer you wait, the more chances you have of becoming a victim.
So what is number 2 on the top 3 list?
Well, the top 3 is those phishers. You'll get emails and so forth thinking that it's from the IRS. And, the IRS is not going to email you. And so you would definitely want to contact them if you think, you got an email address. You just don't want to click on anything because then they can actually hack your computer.
So really leave the unknown links at rest. Don't touch them.
Unknown, right? Yeah, don't touch them at all. The IRS is going to contact you by mail. So you don't want to anything, through the email. You just don't want to click it, especially if you're not familiar with the...
Which tells me that if they're not going to contact you by email, that they're not going to call you either.
Well, that was originally the fact that the IRS doesn't call you anymore. But actually, there was a new... Congress actually... filed a new law, and what they're doing is actually hiring more IRS. They're actually hiring a private collection agency to collect on those outstanding IRS bills, and so they're going to be calling us. So IRS was really, didn't want that to happen because IRS has always contacted you by mail. So now we're going to have this situation where you're going to have private collectors for the IRS calling you, and then scammers are going to be calling you because they've created this. You're not going to really know who the correct person is if they're truly a private collection agency.
Which really begs the question: how would you know if it is a representative from the IRS or a scammer? How would you know the difference?
You're really not going to know when they're calling you. I would say the best thing to do is hang up the phone and contact IRS directly. I mean, you should know if you owe the IRS, but I still would be very leery to pay anything over the phone. I would just contact IRS directly.
And that would probably be the wisest choice, and that way you know whether or not the person at the other end of the line is legitimate or not.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right, so what's number 3?
So number 3 is actually people will work under your social security number and choose not to file an income tax. So then you have a liability there, an income tax bill that's owed. I met someone who was actually a minor at the time, and someone was working under his social security number. And then when he turned like 18 and started working, he got this bill for like $30,000 of unpaid income taxes.
My lands, how was he able to overcome that situation where he's forced to really come up with $30,000 in cash?
Well, he wasn't able to come up with $30,000. He actually had to hire an attorney. And actually, identity theft, 70% of identity theft is a legal problem. So he had to end up, hiring an attorney to prove that that wasn't him.
With today's advanced techniques in filing a return, a lot of people, including myself, we do it online, whether it be through the IRS website itself or through a third-party, what I would call a third-party servicer. How safe are those third-party servicers?
Well, we always say that it is secure, but if you notice, major companies are being breached all the time. Even the IRS got, breached before. So, they're not, to say that they're safe, there's still some risk, there's still risk involved. And I just say, you want to have an a identity theft protection plan, because really we only could reduce risk. We really can't prevent it. So, let's say if you have a tax preparer and they're sending you your information, you just want to make sure it's through a secured encrypted site. As far as individually and personally, I know that they do have, the identity theft that protects your computer, but you may want to look into it to see if there's a way to transform or actually have your information. Going to IRS, it probably is a secured site, but just, going between you and your tax person, you just want to make sure it's a secured platform that they're going through.
And I know a lot of tax preparers, they have their own proprietary software that they use to file the returns. How bad can it be to do that, or do we face that same probability of that site like an H&R Block or Liberty Tax and some of the others that are out there? What about them being hacked?
It's so possible that they can be hacked. I do know that recently, because of the crime is just so out of control, that the tax preparers and actually IRS have gotten together and are trying to put more safeguards in place. However, like I said, as secured as they are, things change all the time. So it's just really being aware. I think that's really important, just being aware and asking your tax preparer, what type of system that they use. And, hey, if there is any problem, is there any liability? Are you going to take any responsibility for losing my information? Because not only is it just the tax return, but it's all your information. They have your name, your address, your phone number, everything's in there. And they say actually your Social Security is just like cash these days, because people will sell it and, create other accounts.
And I would suspect it would be a wise idea. My dad, who had worked for the IRS many years ago, would say, now make sure you save your information for a period of 7 years, because you could be audited over the last 7 years.
Yeah, I would just say, if you're going to save it, like you said, if you have it on your computer, you may want to just make sure it's an encrypted or a file that has a strong password. So if someone ever does get into your computer, especially if you're online all the time, that's the way you want to do it. Because I know, like for my tax preparer, they send it to me email, but it is actually, they have a secured site that has a password and so forth that I believe it's as secured as it can be, and that's why I have ID protection just in case.
Well, let's recap. You have the 3 ways that your identity can be compromised with using IRS and the 3 biggest scams. So let's review what those are once again.
So the first one we were talking about, really just people using your information or filing the taxes before you do. And actually, I was actually able to speak with, I have an identity theft protection, and I was speaking with our licensed investigator and said, you can actually request a PIN from the IRS. And so that PIN number is supposed to, be more secured and so forth. So they can't do anything unless you identify with that PIN. So you can actually go online to IRS or call them and get a form to to request a PIN. So that's one way you can protect yourself or reduce the risk, is just having a PIN number. The second one is also filing early enough, because the longer you wait, there's more chances of a person using it. And then the other way is just through the email. The second way is through email. People think that that they'll get something from the IRS and saying that you owe back taxes or this and that. Just don't open up emails, because I do know that the IRS is not going to contact you by email. And then the third way is basically people will work under your Social Security number and so forth. So you just want to be very careful of who you give your Social Security number to. And unfortunately, if you come across that, that actually did happen to me when when we found out that I couldn't get my tax return. It's actually somebody was working under my daughter's Social Security number, so that was what was kind of holding it up too. So you just want to just be very careful of who you're giving your Social Security number. They're not supposed to ask you for that, a form of ID. There's other ways they can verify your ID.
Well, I remember years and years and years ago when I applied to get a Social Security card. Right on the card itself, there was a statement that says not to be used for identification purposes. And yet today, almost anything that we do, any kind of a transaction, if you want to apply for financial aid, what do you have to give up but your Social Security number?
Yes, it's unfortunate that, like I said, we are identified by our Social Security number. The Social Security number is supposed to be, and I always say, do you know if there's another you out there nowadays? But we thought Social Security number was really our own individual identification, and it really isn't. They shouldn't be using that.
So if people wanted more information about any of the topics that we talk about here on Just That Simple, how can they get a hold of you, Michele?
They can get a hold of me by calling me directly at 805-304-5088. And I'm going to give you another website if they want to learn more about identity theft. And it's actually just my name, but it's Michele, Michele, Wilson.net. And they can get more information, because I really believe that being more aware is a way of helping you reduce risk.
Excellent. Michele Wilson, as always, a delight to have you with us.
Thank you very much, and happy Valentine's
Well,
Day.
thank you. And I hope that you'll have a happy Valentine's Day as well. You've been watching It's Just That Simple. I'm Bill DeFoi for Michele Wilson. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time here on this program. It's a production of the Heritage Media Group.